I was in lovely Mobile, Alabama 2 weeks ago, where on the Wednesday practice it rained for 4 straight hours and it was about 50 degrees. It was all you could hope and pray for. But one of the biggest takeaways for me, and I'll be interested to hear your takeaways as well, is that none of the quarterbacks blew the doors off, but I don't think any of the quarterbacks did anything to hurt themselves. I mean, there's still questions about Carson Strong and his knee. Bailey Zappi is probably a day 3 guy, and we knew that going in, but he gets the most out of his ability, so credit him for that. People were really impressed with Malik Willis, his Wednesday practice, and I went back and watched his Wednesday practice. He was okay. I mean, it wasn't like he was suddenly Russ Wilson or something, and I'm interested what you guys think about that. And I'll start with this, and Josh, you can go first. But I was watching the Louisiana Lafayette Liberty game again because I was looking at one of the Louisiana defensive backs. What's his name? His name is Percy Butler. He's a fun guy. If you are a fan of a team that needs a quarterback, and you want to know how Malik Willis is, please, for the love of God, do not watch this Louisiana game, because you will think this guy learned how to throw a football 15 minutes before that game started. Some of the throws, some of the misses are like, I don't know what he's looking at. But for you, the overall Senior Bowl takeaway for Malik Willis, given that he was sort of the only show in town in Liberty in terms of carrying that offense.
Yeah, there weren't many games that you could watch this year where you walked away saying he's a polished passer. It was good to get a number next to his speed. I mean, we all knew he was fast, but to see that comparable speed to Kyler Murray, I think was interesting. It's a little bit different speed and agility, of course, but good to see some actual numbers with his speed. Other than that, it was a lot of the same. I mean, the settings that he excelled in were throwing against air, in one-on-one routes and, stuff like that. He should be impressing. But when you get to the game, when you get to a live setting, we continue to see him holding on to the football too long. And that's going to be an issue for him at the next level. Yeah, he's got great feet. He has the intangible or the skill set to make some big plays with his arm at times. But there's going to be a learning curve. I mean, he's not going to walk in and be this Josh Allen type player from day one. That's simply not going to happen. You've got to give him some time. And I think what we keep coming back to is his footwork, specifically his speed and his ability to run as a quarterback, is what might give him a fighting chance to buy that time in the NFL to potentially develop as a passer. So that's kind of why I think people are intrigued by Malik Willis.
So you mentioned Josh Allen, and I want to ask you, Traps, exactly that question, because, I talk about this all the time, and I think we all agree, we'll get a thought in our head about whether a player's good or not in college, and then we don't want to move off that thought. And then the reality is these kids are 21, 22 years old, and they're going to get better. Josh Allen's a perfect example coming out of Wyoming. Didn't have anyone around him. He was carrying that team, and he struggled. And then, Brandon Beane, the GM of the Bills, decided they were going to roll the dice on him, and it's worked out better than anyone could have expected. Is there any Malik Willis and any Josh Allen and Malik Willis's game? That's your first question. You can sort of give me your Senior Bowl thoughts on how Malik did.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Josh Allen in Malik Willis. He's obviously not as big. He's only just over 6 foot. But in someone that watched all of Josh Allen's final season and even in 2016 at Wyoming, watching Malik Willis, I see someone that holds the ball too long, like Josh said, too frequently, but does make a lot of those big-time throws that I just did not see nearly as frequently from even Kenny Pickett or Matt Corral or Desmond Ridder, Carson Strong, any of the other quarterbacks. He does make some bad decisions. Josh Allen made some bad decisions at Wyoming and early in his NFL career. But to think that Malik Willis is not going to come in and be Josh Allen right away, I agree with that. But Josh Allen was not Josh Allen right away. In his first 8 starts as a rookie, he didn't look like an NFL quarterback. I remember watching those games thinking, man, if this continues, he might not even be on the team next year. And then after he started, 8-9 games, he got injured in the middle of his rookie season. When he came back, things started to slow down for him a little bit. He did get rid of the football a little bit more frequently, didn't take as many sacks. And even if he was making those hero ball bad throws across his body, they were being counteracted by the big time throws. So that's what I see a lot of the same stuff with Malik Willis. Definitely the propensity to run. And if he doesn't like what he sees, he's going to take off. which certainly needs to be ironed out of his game. But like Josh mentioned, it's a good point. If you have that athleticism, you can buy time. I mean, Deshaun Watson got sacked a ton in his first couple seasons in Houston. He was still a problem when he was still playing. But if you can create some plays with your legs on those plays that you're not getting sacked, and you do have misfires, but you're also hitting 60-yard touchdowns over the top, that can allow you time to let the game slow down a little bit. And certainly you want to put a good environment around Malik Willis. That's going to be key, even probably more so than any other of the quarterbacks in this class. But with him, you do have that all-pro-esque ability that I don't know if any of the other passers have.
All right, let me ask you this, Traps. Just yes or no. Is Malik Willis should he be drafted inside the top 10?
I would. Yes.
All right,
yes.
You would.
Positional value. Yes.
Is the follow-up question is Josh Allen a unicorn, or is this a blueprint where Malik Willis in the right situation can have 75% of Josh Allen's success?
I think the latter. I don't think he can be Josh Allen 2.0 because he's not 6'6", 260. I don't think he's going to be running over cornerbacks in the playoffs. But yes, you can get 75% of Josh Allen. The offensive line is at least serviceable. You get him a true number one receiver like Josh Allen has, like Kyler Murray has with DeAndre Hopkins, like Matthew Stafford has with Cooper Kupp, and build around him with other good secondary and tertiary options at receiver.
Josh, Malik Willis, top 10 pick for you?
No.
And is he 75% of Josh Allen, best case scenario, right fit, Saints or whatever?
I mean, best case scenario, yeah. I think that would be great. But, we get into this game of chasing waterfalls. Chasing waterfalls. Chasing comps. We look for the next Josh Allen, we look for the next Tyreek Hill, and sometimes there just isn't one, So in an ideal world, yeah, I mean, he gets into that stratosphere of being a comparable Josh Allen, but I do think there's a lot of danger in chasing the comps.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one because, again, I don't want to shut down Malik Willis because of Josh Allen. But again, how many times do we see Josh Allen come along? And so far, it feels like once. All right, Josh, we'll come back to you. Over the course of the 3 practices in the game, who do you think improved their stock? You can give me 1 name, 2 names, however many you want, coming out of the Senior Bowl.
Well, I wanted to start with Georgia defensive tackle Devonte Wyatt, but I didn't have him as a big riser. I think he showed on tape that he was a first-round type player. So instead, I will say Florida State edge rusher Jermaine Johnson, who was a lot more impressive to me than what I saw on tape. I thought he showed more pop around the edge. I thought he used his hands better. He showed some more moves. I was very impressed, although he didn't finish the week. I thought he had a very good week and certainly helped himself in my eyes.
I'm with you on Jermaine Johnson. I think I had him like a second-round guy coming into the week, and it felt like the Montez Sweat sort of situation where he was just destroying people time and time again, and Montez Sweat would have gone higher if not for that sort of late in the process heart issue that he still ended up being a first-round pick. And I agree 100%. What do you got, Traps?
I think Calvin Austin, the tiny receiver from Memphis, when I watched this film, I was like, okay, he's fast, but is he really getting open that frequently on his own? And definitely the Senior Bowl is great for getting open and taking like 7 seconds to do so. And that's completely fine in those one-on-one drills. But I just saw a lot more quickness and more like polish from him as a route runner. And just, I think there is just some value in literally watching a wide receiver get open and catch touchdown after touchdown after touchdown in practice, that those GMs and scouting directors say like, hey, we come here to watch these 3 practices. We care about those more so than the game. Calvin Austin seemingly was uncoverable all week. Could he be that Tutu Atwell guy that we know is way undersized and is going to have problems dealing with the physicality in the NFL that ultimately goes in the second round quite earlier than a lot of people thought? I think he could be almost strictly based on, yes, he had a lot of statistics, a lot of production at Memphis. I didn't think the film was spectacular, but because of the week he had in Mobile, he's, I think, cemented on day 2 of the draft.
I love Calvin Austin. I liked him coming into the week. In fact, if you go back and watch that 2020 game against Marcus Jones out of Houston, Marcus Jones, he's not a chump, and that he gave Marcus Jones all he can handle. And he's a return guy, a punt returner. I was talking to a scout at the Senior Bowl about him, and he goes, yeah, he's 4 feet tall, but he can be a 4-down player if you want. In specialty situations, you can certainly find find ways to get him involved. And, you know, once he's in the open field, that's a wrap. You're not getting your hands on him. I thought he had a really good week. He had some focus drops at Memphis. So those are the things you have to sort of consider. Speaking of focus drops, I'll mention a couple of names of guys that really stood out for me. Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama. Again, that guy drops more freaking passes than you can wrap your head around. He'll make an incredibly difficult catch and then drop one that hits him in the hands, but he looks the part. He looks like Will Fuller. He's not quite that fast, but he's that sort of playmaker. Christian Watson, the kid out of North Dakota State, he was really good coming into the week. He had a really good week as well. Alec Pierce looked pretty good out of Cincinnati, and Khalil Shakir, out of wait, where'd he go?
Boise State.
Boise State. I'm trying to read the abbreviations. IDBO. I'm like, what is that? Yeah, that's right. I liked him coming in. I didn't love him, but he had a really good week. And then some of the cornerbacks and safeties. Jalen Petre out of Baylor. He was good coming in. He did nothing to change that opinion. I thought that Kobe Bryant played better that week than I saw during the season. Obviously, Sauce Gardner is a dude, but Kobe Bryant wasn't quite that same dude at points during the season, but he had a really good week. And finally, I'll mention Roger McCreary, who I think we all like.
Love him. Yeah,
lacks the physical skills that you typically see in a big time first round corner. And maybe he doesn't go in round one, but he was locked down all week. And, you know, as Josh mentioned, you're going up against air, but as a D-back, you're not. You actually have to cover people. And I thought he did a really good job with that. Josh, I'll come back to you. Anyone that you sort of was like, I was hoping for more and didn't quite see it?
Yeah, and we had McCreary on the Pick Six YouTube channel last week.
Oh, that's right.
Talking about his Senior Bowl experience and
what did he say, by the way?
He had a lot of really good stuff to say. He was talking about some of the battles that he's had in the SEC. Treylon Burks is another guy that we had on the show later in the week. So it was interesting trying to get the opinions of both of those guys on what it was like to face each other in a game setting. I think they both offered some insight into, you know, what they're looking at pre-snap and the challenges that each presents after the snap. So it was a really good conversation with both. If you haven't checked that out on the Pick Six YouTube feed. But I will say one player that I thought needed to do more was Nevada quarterback Carson Strong.
Yeah.
We've talked about him a lot on this podcast, you know, over the last several months. He's a guy that has no mobility. So for that sake, you need him to be an elite passer. You need him to separate himself from the others in that kind of a setting. And he just didn't do that, unfortunately. So for me, I think he was one that didn't give quite as much as he needed to down in Mobile.
No, that's a good one. By the way, before I let you talk, Traps, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Travis Jones absolutely destroying people in the 101 out of UConn, the lone bright spot on that UConn team. Perry Winfrey won the MVP of the game, I believe. He had a good week as well. Traps, anyone that you wanted to see more from and didn't quite give it to you?
Daniel Falele from Minnesota. I mean, to measure in at like 6'8", 389 or whatever it was, like he's bigger than Mekhi Becton, bigger than Evan Neal, which is insane. And his film at Minnesota this season against some kind of, to me, lackluster Big Ten pass rushers was actually pretty good. But I thought in those one-on-ones that do seem pretty translatable to the next level, and we usually take a lot from them in the trenches, edge rusher against offensive tackle. Falele, like just his lateral quickness, obviously at almost 400 pounds, was just not there. And it seemed like a lot of the edge rushers knew, like, yeah, rush up the field, then cross over to the inside, and he's just not going to be able to get his hands on you. Definitely the size and the length are immense, and it feels like he's probably still going to be a top 100 pick just because of that. But had he shown a little better quickness or even came in a little bit lighter than 390 pounds, I think he would have done a lot for himself to maybe even move into the, early second or maybe late first round range.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was talking to a scout specifically about Falele, and he said, here's the thing. Depending on which games you're watching, he's a top 20 pick or he's like
exactly
a late day 2 guy. And he said he's young. He hasn't played a lot of football. He's sort of like Bernard Raymond in that sense. And there may be some questions about his love of the game, all the stupid crap we have to hear around this time of year. But he is a legit football player. And if you want to see, he mentioned like there are 30 plays you could point to and be like, oh my God, this guy is going to be a great NFL player. And he said half those came in that Ohio State game. And I had seen that game, and he was like just destroying people. And I think that's going to be the math that the teams have to do as we go through this process. I like them a lot. And I think those one-on-one drills are a disservice for guys who weigh over 375 pounds.
Well, he got steamrolled by a couple of smaller guys too. So that was a little bit concerning to see. I didn't really see that on his tape, but
no,
it definitely catches your eye when you see a smaller guy put a 390-pound offensive tackle on his back.
Yeah, the same scout said to me, I mean, look at this man standing next to Darian Kinnard. He's 3 or 4 inches taller and 30 or 40 pounds heavier. And Kinnard also got steamrolled by Dwayne Johnson, that one-on-one drill to end it. But again, I'm not putting too much in that. Those are 2 really good football players. And, you know, you're asking an offensive lineman to win every time. Sometimes you lose some. But both those players, I think, are going to end up being top 70 picks. If they go outside of that, that'll be interesting. But for me, the name I'll mention in terms of guys I want to see more from, 2 guys. Darian Kendrick, who now plays for Georgia, played at Clemson. He didn't have a great week, at least in the drills. Maybe he played better in the game if he played. I don't even remember. I haven't gone back and watched the game. But in the one-on-one drills, I wanted to see more, and I didn't quite see it. I still like him. He's one of my favorite players. But I thought Andrew Booth, if we're being honest, had a better 2021 season at Clemson than Darian Kendrick did at Georgia. And also Dontario Drummond. That's a guy, the wide receiver at Ole Miss. I cannot put my finger on what his deal is. Like, you watch Ole Miss, and I was asking some people, no one can give me a straight answer. I don't know if it's by design that those wide receivers run half-ass routes like for 60% of the snaps, if that's part of the Lane Kiffin, aura, or if it's just they're not out there running hard. And I saw some of that actually at the Senior Bowl. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not seeing things correctly. Dontario Drummond could be, and I don't want to say this and be quoted on it, but he could be Deebo Samuel in terms of after the yards after the catch ability. He's not Deebo Samuel. He's more like Deebo from Friday in terms of his ability to run the football, because it just doesn't show up consistently. And it starts for me with a little urgency getting off the line of scrimmage. So I didn't see that. I wanted to see more of that. Hopefully throughout the process that will happen. Any other final thoughts, Josh, from your Senior Bowl takeaways?
No, I think we covered it. I was, we had chatted a little bit about what you saw from the quarterbacks throughout the week. So, I thought it was good to see, some ideas from someone that was actually on the ground and saw it in person, as opposed to just the variety of media tweets that were coming out of Mobile, because there was some stuff that really, like, the hype train is well down the tracks with a couple of guys based on what was coming out of there. But I think when you watch the practice tape and, kind of talk to people a little bit after the dust has settled, we really didn't learn that much from the quarterbacks down there.
No, I think that's right. Traps, you got anything?
How about Dameon Pierce, the running back from Florida? Like, the job that he did, it kind of went viral. In pass protection, I think him at like 5'9", 220, like, he is compact of a running back as you're going to see in the draft. Then you turn on his film and you watch him at the Senior Bowl practices. He's pretty twitched up. Like, he can change directions in a hurry. And at that size, he is just effortlessly powerful. And you always hear it's like a coaching cliche that, hey, if you're a good pass protector, you'll be on the field on third downs. Dameon Pierce in a running back class that has those big 3 names, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and Isaiah Spiller, I think he kind of made a name for himself to maybe be the 4th or the 5th running back off the board.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was down there with Scott Pioli, and he is a huge Dameon. He was talking about him all week, about how much he loved how well he was doing throughout the week. So I think you're onto something, and you're not alone in thinking that. That's a good note there. All right, guys.